Thank you, Đurđica. And thank you to all of you, dear guests, who have been with us since the very beginning. I do know that some of you will have to leave this conference quite soon. But before we start with the presentations, I would like to ask our lecturers to kindly stick to the schedule. We were late at the beginning of the conference, and we do need to finish by 5:30 this afternoon. Many of you have traveled from around Croatia. Most of you who have traveled from outside of Zagreb are from the eastern part of Croatia, Slavonia. But I'm glad to see that this presentation and this conference is not accessible just for those who are in Zagreb, but also attractive to everyone from outside of Zagreb. Now, I have to say a few words about Branka. It's always difficult to talk about people you love. Roda has been with us as a program coordinator since 2011. But her activities were mostly focused on labor, on birth, not just as an advocate, but also as a direct supporter, as a doula. And some 3 or 4 years ago, Branka and I, after an event that we organized at the School for Social Welfare, we sat down and talked about our activities, and we talked about the fact that our activities are available to those who find it easy to reach us. And we didn't, in fact, we weren't before that moment aware of the fact that we too were engaged in increasing that gap between us and other persons who had some kind of disability. That's why we decided to make it our strategic priority to deal with these so-called hard topics, like Đurđica said. We're one of the few organizations involved in these activities. We care of children whose parents are imprisoned, parents with disabilities, international assistance or protection seekers, and other vulnerable groups of the society. In order to make our work a quality work, we realized that we didn't have academic background, so there was no research on this field. So right now we're working with women with disabilities, and therefore we decided to cooperate with the Ombudsman and other associations involved in the field to work on research, and we will be presenting that research later on, and there's a brochure that's served in the hall, and you can take that as well. So I will give the floor now to Branka, and Branka will tell you about the research. Motherhood and Women with Disabilities is the name of the research. So, Ivana, while you prepared the presentation, thank you. Really, thank you for the kind words. I wasn't expecting that. So, like my colleague said, we weren't alone on this research. We did it together with several partners. In fact, we wouldn't even dare to go into such studies alone, because we don't do this for ourselves. We do it with you and for you, and with all of you who are ready to get involved in change. This research was implemented in late 2015 and during 2016 with the Ombudsperson for Persons with Disabilities, and with SOIH and the Association of Blind People, People of Zagreb, and other NGOs. With the aim of supporting women with disabilities in reproductive age. This was co-financed by the Ministry of Health. By the way, we do have some samples of the research. We have some brochures, but we do not have a sufficient number of copies. So we kindly ask that only those of you who haven't seen it take a copy. By the way, this is also available on our website, so you can find it there, print it out, share it with friends, or simply download it from our website, so there's no need to ask for a license or permission. Before I say a few words about the project, I'd like to say about the research. I'd like to say that during the project, within which we performed this research, we also prepared materials for women and mothers with disabilities, simply because we realized that women don't reach us because we're not available or not accessible. They cannot get information that we share, and they do not get the materials that they could use as a preparation during pregnancy. Thus, our DVD is DVD that we prepared, and we made it some 10 years ago together with UNICEF. I'm sure you know about it. We've been distributing it around maternity wards around Croatia in tens of thousands of copies. And so finally, last year, we realized that we should translate this into sign language so that it could be available to women who didn't have access to it before. Also, we made another handbook for parents, from which we normally, all of these materials are printed, but they're not available to persons with visual impairments. And now we've made them accessible to women with visual impairments as well. Some of you were there with us at the end of this psychosocial support to women with disabilities during reproductive age project. You were there when we presented the results of the project. However, I think it's good to remind you of the results. So the objective of this research was to identify the factors and circumstances of healthcare of pregnant women with disabilities and support to mothers with disabilities in order to improve their position. So I will try to read everything that's on the slides because we have participants who are not able to read the PowerPoints as well. I know that this is not the best way of presenting a PowerPoint, but that's how I'm going to do it this way. The research was implemented in two ways. We had a questionnaire for 100 women and mothers with disabilities, and we had a deep interview or a drill-down interview with 20 mothers with disabilities, which included persons with mental disabilities. The questionnaire was filled out by 100 women aged 18 to 50. 49% of them were highly educated, 46% of them were employed, 40% of them were in a higher-income family, 40% of respondents were from Zagreb, and 60% of respondents were from other counties of Croatia. Type of disability. Well, from what you can see in the out of the 100 respondents, we had the majority of them, 32% of them with visual impairments, other bodily disabilities 11%, hearing disabilities 9%, cerebral paralysis 7%, and other unspecified disability 25%. When I asked them about their rights, and whether or not they felt well informed about their rights, 31% of them said yes, but 42% of women don't think that they're well informed of their rights, and as many as 27% of the respondents do not know or cannot give an evaluation. I asked them, how do you get information about your rights? 69% of them said that they get information online, 64% via NGOs or alliances for persons with disabilities, 53% from friends or acquaintances with disabilities. This is very valuable information because we cannot force women to get information in other ways. I think these are the channels that we need to use because these are the channels that are accessible and available to them. Therefore, if friends and acquaintances are a valuable source of information, then that means that we need to empower those people. In other words, we have to give them an opportunity to either volunteer or provide help. 24% of them is informed through competent institutions. Our next question was what needs to be changed? As you can see, the percentages are rather high because there's a lot to be changed in our society. So 76% believe that they need better financial support. 75% of women or respondents said we need to work more on the suppression of prejudice on women and mothers with disabilities. 64% believe that more training and awareness raising among the public is needed for the needs of women with disabilities. 57% believe that we need to provide assistance around care for the child. For example, personal assistant is something that women with disabilities have to fight for. And assistance for care of the child is something that's not yet offered. And a certain percentage of them believe that we need to improve healthcare in general. We asked them also if they want to have a child if they don't have one. 32% of them said no, and 68% said yes. Are there any obstacles for motherhood? 66% of respondents believed that there were. This slide tells us about obstacles to motherhood for persons with disabilities. Numbers are relatively low because few women answered this question. The poll did not cover only mothers, but women at a reproductive age. So 10 of them said that they did not have the resources. 8 of them said that they did not have sufficient, they believed that the healthcare for women with disabilities was insufficient, or that they didn't have a partner. 5 of them said that they couldn't get a personal assistant. 4 of them said they didn't have personal partner. The support of a partner. Some said they didn't have the support of the family, and so on. We also asked them how crucial their disability was for deciding not to have a baby if they didn't have one. 30% of them said it was partially the reason why they didn't have a child, and 36% of them said that that this had no impact on their decision not to have a child. I'm running out of time, but this is a slide that you cannot see very well from the screen, but it's much better in the printed edition of the survey. When we asked women to give their evaluation of healthcare during childbirth and during birth and after birth and in antenatal care, so we had different questions. We asked them to rate this healthcare from 1 to 5, where 5 is the highest evaluation. We can see that the results are quite optimistic because the numbers you see at the very bottom are rather low percentages, and this is the lowest evaluation. That's green. That's number 1. That's the lowest grade. Blue is number 2. So this is between 6 and 13%. This plum color or purple is evaluation 3, again between 8 and 36%. Most women who were covered by the questionnaire were satisfied with the healthcare that they were provided. They're especially satisfied with the healthcare of the doctor, of the medical staff. And 70% of women thought that the doctors cared for them well after giving birth. We also have positive evaluations of doctors before and during birth giving and of other healthcare professionals. More than 60% of women who gave birth evaluated the service as 4 or 5. In addition to these women, there are still women who are not satisfied with the healthcare that they're provided, and they give either 1, 2, or 3 as an evaluation of these services. And in some occasions, this percentage climbs up to 30% of our respondents. As many as 30% of women are not satisfied with the way that the maternity ward was equipped during delivery. Care after the delivery is not satisfactory for around 34% of women. So I kindly ask you to read this report carefully, because this questionnaire and this survey that we did was, as I said, published on our website and is available for download. As far as our in-depth interview, that's the second part of our research. It covered 20 women who were mothers at the time of preschool children. We looked into their healthcare, access to healthcare experience as a mother, and so on. In this presentation, I only focus on that part related to healthcare. Mothers with disabilities have positive experiences. As you will see, there are many personal testimonies, very good stories, and this is one of those. As you can see, it demonstrates how the healthcare professionals put in an effort so that the woman with disability would have a pleasant experience during childbirth. There was one woman who had cerebral paralysis, and she said about her gynecologist, the gynecologist knew I wanted to get pregnant. She gave me all of the referrals, and she was surprised that her colleague before her didn't send me to do some checks. But after I gave birth, she retired. She, in fact, said that she wanted to see me have my baby, and then she could go and retire happily. As far as the positive experiences are concerned, the women state that, for example, the hospital staff tend to break hospital protocols in order to help them have a good experience at the hospital. So, like I said, usually when people avoid the protocol, this means a negative experience. But in this case, it was done in order to assist the women with disabilities. I'm also glad that you see that there are women with disabilities who've had a nice experience, and we've had the readiness of the healthcare to be educated. As a positive experience, they are very full of empathy, for example, if there are architectural barriers or communicational barriers. Negative experience was also presented. A mother says, the gynecologist I used to go to kept reading down without looking at me, and I kept reminding him about the fact that he needed to look at me so I could lip read. I find it complicated to always tell people what it is that they need to do. I don't know of any other solution. The other mother says, I don't know the first or last name of the doctor who was my obstetrician. I feel like I was punished. The only help I got was from the other woman who was also in labor at the time that I was. These were some general negative experiences, and they're presented here on the slide. Mostly it's prejudice, routine approach, disinterested approach of the healthcare system, passive, being too passive or not informed about the Lamaze classes, lack of understanding, loss of dignity, and insufficient training. Breastfeeding. Here are quotes from mothers. They're not too emphatic towards women who are first-time mothers. I find it very traumatic. Breastfeeding was very important for me because it's the only thing I can give to the child. The nurse said I have problems with breastfeeding because I can't see, so I can't put my breast inside her mouth. When nurses see you, those who are in favor of breastfeeding tell you, don't worry, I'll take her, and then they take the baby away and they feed her with the bottle, and it sleeps for the next 4 hours. The support that women get is indeed great inside their own families. You will see that reading this report, and you will see that the greatest support that they get is from their partners and their family. Unfortunately, that support is not provided by the institutions in the same amount. We have a quote of a mother whose leg has been amputated, and she uses a bed mattress. And so this is what she says. you have the right to change the mattress once a year. If you gain weight, you have the right to change it only once. But if you're pregnant, you physiologically gain weight, but you don't have the right to change the mattress due to the fact that you're pregnant. How is that support from the system? We know that women with an amputated leg have to have medical support and medical mattresses, especially during the later phase of their pregnancy when they gain a lot of weight and they have to have the medical aid to support their body. Plus, this is also chronic fear. This is another quote. I had chronic fear. I was chronically afraid that the Center for Social Welfare would take my child away from me. We do know that there are 2 blind parents who are fighting to get their child back. Now I'll have to skip the following slides and jump right up to the conclusions. We need to protect the dignity of women with disabilities, suppress widespread prejudice, include the entire society, advocate for friendly public policies, make them visible, find the mechanisms and make them more accessible, the mechanisms that would improve the rights of pregnant women with disabilities, focus on the training of all counterparts, educate women with disabilities and empower them, develop innovative systems for the support, develop volunteering programs, remove architectural barriers, and adapt the available equipment in the healthcare system, develop volunteering programs for support in medical healthcare systems, and develop rental services for women with disabilities. Unfortunately, I really had to run through this quickly, but as I said, this survey and this research is available on our website, and you can download it. Thank you very much for your attention.